I got it.
All right.
Hey guys, welcome back to another week of the Unnamed Cybersecurity Podcast show. I don't know sure what we're calling it this week. Anyway, I'm back this week. Chris is here, Carl's here, Matt's still MIA, and last I heard he was sick again, or sick still.
We're gonna create a deep fake avatar of Matt,
I hear he's
and we're just gonna have him say
Delos
funny stuff.
Corporation. I hear he's got long ties going back to Delos, and he may never have really existed.
So I don't remember. Have we talked about the
Maybe.
deepfake video?
What's that?
Have we talked about the
Hong Kong? Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks since.
I'm gonna be doing a talk next week actually with somebody else I'm preparing about generative AI, and we're doing it to a group of business owners, and that's one of the things I'm gonna talk about. I deepfake my voice on a video, so that's gonna be fun. So I'm gonna show that off. I'm looking at doing I'm gonna look at the idea of doing a deepfake video and kind of show them. I'm trying not to scare them, but if I walk in there with a video of like maybe I'll take like a video for like Footloose or something like that, and I'll be in Footloose even though I don't even watch the movie, so I'll just be randomly
Well, I was
dancing.
actually kind of thinking. I was kind of thinking of getting the technology together and doing a deep fake video with you and me in it, and you beat me and I beat you, and we see how different the video really is.
That'd be
Interesting.
Well, if we're doing a video like this, it'd be pretty easy because we can just swap our faces. So because we're not moving around that much, so
Yeah.
it'd be just swapping faces and stuff like that. So it'd be kind of interesting. And then Carl, we'll make you something else. I don't know.
That's
What do you want
fine.
to be?
I'm okay. I'm
We'll
okay
make him
with
Matt.
that. Make me Matt. That'd be great.
Oh man,
Talking about the
Funny.
deepfake video, this wasn't planned. New York Times, I was just watching, did one where they just tried one of these deepfake videos against Chase voice verification, and it passed.
Oh,
I mean,
You get that option to verify or to use your voice as a verification. I'm going to go opt out of that.
you get those robocalls, and people saying, "Oh, they're just calling you to record data
Well,
record your voice content."
do you remember when Samsung, I think, was the one that was having it? But they said that they had infrared cameras, like IR cameras for like face ID, and then you realized that they weren't actually reading depth, so you could just take a picture and hold it up.
That was even like the old stuff.
So
You could take
so
a
it's like,
copy of your thumbprint at one point.
yeah. So early technology on some of this stuff isn't the greatest stuff to use. I'm not shocked by the voice thing getting changed, because when I was doing it, I did a video and I had to upload 45 seconds of my voice, and you could tell I can tell it's not me, but it's really hard. It's really close, and I didn't say any of it. It was like a 4-minute video, so I could see where that'd get tricked pretty easily, especially considering phone call quality isn't that great in the first place. So now you're doing phone quality might not be that great, and it has to determine that. So the percentage of error they have must be pretty high. So, whoops.
We only need a couple data points to say, "Oh, you're you." Okay, let's move on.
Exactly.
Are we really us?
Who knows?
Yeah. So
I know my hand still hurts, so I know I am. So it's me.
so I'm alive.
You feel pain. You're
Oh
alive.
man.
Okay.
So you went to a legal thing today, right, Bob? Like,
Yeah, I went to a legal continuing ed class this morning, specifically around cybersecurity, and really some really interesting stuff. A lot of it was applying to larger companies, SEC filings, and things like that. And but the fact that the SEC is now requiring public entities to file within 4 days, people are saying, well, yeah, I'm filing it, but am I filing the right stuff? Do I actually know what's happened in those 4 days? And is it going to come back to bite us because we're ultimately supplying a blueprint of how to get in if they supply too much? But
yeah.
But the big takeaway from this morning was, for me personally, was if you are going through a breach incident and you have a forensic team working, don't be so hung up on who did it. Be more hung up on how it happened, what's going on, and mitigating it and preventing it in the future. Because if you're a public entity and ultimately have to pay the ransom or decide to pay the ransom, and you know that it's a country that you're not allowed to do business with, you can't pay it. So, and in the case the case study this morning, the initial results from the forensic team were only small. They were only a little sure that it was a specific group, but they went public with it and said, okay, it was so and so, and they couldn't pay the ransom. When it ultimately came down, the FBI team actually said, no, it's not this guy, it's this. But that was all over at that point. And
that's why these bad guys rebrand themselves so many times.
And that was part of what he said. It was a lot. It was a group out of the Ukraine, but it was and everything went up in turmoil when stuff started over there.
It's funny though. They rebrand, but the way they code stays with them, right? You can always go back and look at code and figure out like where people have been, just because there's always the same markers. Same way that we write, people code. So it's just interesting how you can kind of use that and look at it from that perspective. So.
Yeah, they were also, this morning we're in New Jersey, so they were talking about some of the New Jersey stuff that's coming down. It's no different than any other state, and they're like, yeah, the SEC and FTC are pushing stuff out now, and pretty much it's going to be across. They think it's going to be across the board, both public and private entities. And what people don't realize is, especially with the public entities now, is cyber breaches could follow the executives anywhere they go, from a compliance perspective. If a company gets sanctions put on them for things that they have to do, and that executive leaves the company and goes to another one, well, that new company needs to follow those same sanctions. So
see, but that's
accountability.
I was going to say, though, but that's at a public company level. If they go to a private entity, that no longer applies, correct?
Today, it doesn't.
Today, right.
It's only today.
If you're going from a CEO from a public company to a private company, it's probably, first of all, you've cut your options down in half of who you're going to go to. And second, the potential amount that you could get as far as a CEO, your market value has been affected negatively.
Maybe, but what is the timeline for the SEC with those sanctions? Do they expire if you just haven't been there? Because let's say private equity is so big in this country. Let's say I'm a CEO, I have a cyber attack, I want to go hide for a few years because the SEC slaps us with 5 years on, it's going to follow me for 5 years. Okay, I go to private equity, I go run one of their entities that they bought into, and their plan is to sell the company in 5 years or IPO in 5 years. Okay, I help build that company up. I earn all of my options inside of there. Yep. All of a sudden, before they IPO, the SEC no longer is following me, no longer applying those sanctions to any public company. They choose the IPO. I get rich, all because I have options in this company and I help build them as a private company. That's not that far fetched.
There's always a loophole, and
So
if you don't want to get exposed to having to do that or make that your the only play that you have, that's.
I for me, it's not about jail time anymore, unless it's like completely negligent. It's more about, I think you need to put financial things that follow people, like make it very financially like some of the stuff that's happening. We could talk a little bit further about that at another time, but like they're just gonna get around it unless you're hitting their pocketbook right away, unless you're actually hitting it right there and forcing people to actually do the right thing, because people are only going to do what's the minimum they're required to do. Correct? Does anybody disagree with that?
No, we're seeing that every day.
Yeah.
Of course.
And actually that brings up the last point from the event was, they were talking a little bit about the New York DFS and the FTC safeguards. They both list, if you do a quick read through it, you see, there's an exemption for number of records. Is it 10,000? Is it 5,000? Is it 500? People see exemption and then they say, we're exempt, and they just push it to the side and move on and don't read the rest of the sentence. It says, yeah, you're exempt, but you're only exempt from, it's a limited exemption. You don't have to do everything.
You don't have to do it at the corporate level, at the public company level, but you still have responsibilities.
You still have responsibilities. You still have to follow the core items of the FTC Safeguards Act, but not necessarily every line item. So it's a very limited extent. And New York DFS is the same way. If you're a private company, you might not have a board of directors to actually report to, which is one of the requirements in the FTC.
Bigger private companies will have a board, whether that board is
when you're a bigger private company, you're going to hit this.
Yeah,
because it's not that high for the FTC. It's only 5,000 records.
Yeah.
So if you're a big, most public companies have more than that, as far as PII information is concerned. Then
if we look at SolarWinds, that's the SolarWinds CISO that got he didn't get convicted because of the breach. It was actually how they dealt with how he was dealing with the.
Well, he's not convicted, right? He's being brought up on charges.
Right. So then the guy today was talking like it was more around the charges are brought up because of the way that they was responding to the incident itself and dealing with the authorities and not being fully cooperative.
Oh yeah, they say fraud, right? Fraud and then internal control failures. So
yeah, the guy today was really saying it was more. It was very much around being incooperative and Friday knowing that there was going to be an announcement in a couple of days about another data. Actually, that wasn't SolarWinds. That was Uber, where where there was a known incident about to be reported. And he's sitting with the investigators, and they asked, "Are there any other cyber incidents we should know about?"
He did get convicted.
He's
CISO for Uber, dude.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking. CISO, and I was thinking Uber when I was talking before.
But you're not wrong with the SolarWinds one is being brought up on charges by the SEC for fraudulent. So it's the SolarWinds one or the Uber one's a little interesting because he kind of got thrown under the bus by Uber. So there's that could spin us into a whole conversation about why it's dangerous to be a CISO these days at public companies and how they lack protection and seat at the table and
a whole bunch of
So
market forces in that position. Period.
Before we go back to public companies, how about you want to talk something about Apple?
Yeah, let's
Carl?
talk about on the simple day to day. You don't. Let's say you're not a CEO of a public company, or a Fortune executive. This is a very realistic situation that's been happening, and it's really a pain in the neck to those who. It can be devastating. I had just picked this up. One of our people had posted, that they had just gotten a call from somebody who had their iCloud account hacked into. And so what they did is they took over the phone number for the iCloud. They proceeded to lock her out of this. So that meant she got locked out of her phone. And these phones are our lifeblood. I mean, so she's locked out of not just all the pictures and videos, but text messages, her phone book, her email, any passwords, anything like that, but also into the financial institutions that she's working with, banks and whatnot there, and possible health records. And, they went through the text messages. Law enforcement was able to help freeze the credit and also get her cell phone number back. But the rest of the data that's inside of that iCloud cluster, the videos, the text messages, the videos and the pictures and all that stuff, Apple's like, tough. We're not, you can't recover with it. You don't have that password has been changed and you don't have that password anymore because of this hack. And this is not the first time this has happened. There's actually been a gang. I talked about this, I think, in a blog I wrote about a year ago, where there's been gangs in New York and Chicago that would go into nightclubs, and it could be a pretty lady, targeting a guy. And what they would do is they'd either ply him with some drinks. They may have slipped something in. They'd watch them put their 6-digit code into the phone. Once they were confident with that, they'd steal the phone, and they'd run the same play. And so this is being done not just on a one-off. This is a very, for the bad guys, they're taking advantage of the fact that once they get in there, if you haven't done a few things, it's really almost impossible to get this information back currently the way it is. So, a couple of things that you want to do is one, if you go to privacy.apple.com, you can go ahead and request a copy of all your data that they have. And you can do this with you can do the same thing with Facebook, LinkedIn, and you should keep a copy in a couple locations. And the other thing is with Apple, there is a thing. I just did this morning. You can go in the Apple ID and you can create a recovery code, which is a special number that you can that you can keep. And God forbid you get locked out, you have this master code that you can go ahead and reclaim it regardless of what the bad guys are doing. I think that's a good idea. I think it's bad on Apple that they did not go ahead and say, hey, you should do this. They should have been a little bit more proactive that you have a code. It's, this is something, God forbid, break glass, an emergency, because you're going to see more actors, bad guys coming out and doing this stuff on a local area. I can see this, like the grandparents scams that we always see. Yep. And, when we and you were talking about what are the two groups that get attacked the most, the very old and the very young, those 20 to 40-year-olds were going to the clubs. Definitely a target, but
so you're talking about the stolen iPhone protection that came out with iOS 17.3.
No,
right?
I'm actually talking about that's separate. I'm talking about you go into your Apple ID, you sign in, you go to a section that's called Sign In and Security, and under that there's something called Account Recovery, and you turn that on, and then it will issue you a key. And you save that key to a different location, and you have to then verify. It took me a few minutes. Honestly, I had to take a picture of the key because it was a text message. It was in a text. It wasn't a text. It was a picture on my phone. So I had to take a screenshot of that. I had to put that into another thing, type that up, and then I had to go back in and type it back into the thing to verify that I understood what the code was.
So for people out there, if you've ever set up multi-factor authentication, sometimes give you recovery codes that are used in one-time situations. That's what Carl's kind of describing, right? So it's like if you lose everything else, as long as you have that recovery code, they'll allow you to use it one time to recover. There's also stolen phone protection that you can put on your phone as well that locks out part of the functions of the phone. This came about in January, where just whatever you do when you turn it on, don't set like a pin to like the same thing as your actual pin to log in, please. But you can turn that on and kind of put that protection on as well. So at least that helps with that. And I don't know.
Well, the problem with the iCloud account getting into that is then you have, because they didn't physically have access, from what I understand, of the phone. They got into the iCloud account for whatever reason. They were able to gain access to that. And at that point, you have access to the whole Apple infrastructure. You can get into their files on their computers. It's not just the phone that you can potentially lock somebody out of it.
Did the person have MFA on? Seems like they did.
I don't know. I didn't. This isn't somebody I dealt with directly, but not having that turned on or having, creates a mess. But even I'm sure the bad guys turned on MFA.
Yeah, right.
I mean, probably. I was just trying to think through it because actually I'm going to look at my stolen. I'll just give up what I have. I'm looking at my stolen device settings right now.
And the other advantage of that stolen device settings is the fact that if the phone gets stolen, it can't be reactivated. You can't just go reset it to factory defaults and use it again. Apple's already got it blacklisted.
Yeah, for stolen device protection on an iPhone, it actually you can put require security delay to always or away from familiar locations. So it tries to remember like where you're at a lot of the time and kind of help you there. I agree though, Carl, like what you said, make sure that you have like that recovery key because that's going to be really important. Turning on MFA is important, but I think this even brings up another thing. Is it really safe to put everything that you do into one account? So your emails are synced there, your passwords are in there. Like you get to a point where it's like, is that really the safe way to do it? Or is it better to break it up? So even if somebody can restore your phone, from iCloud, maybe your passwords are in a different password manager. That it won't log in from a restored account. It'd be there. The application will be there, but it won't be logged in. So you start going down that road of like, what's the better way to do it?
Well, I think that's why
protect your data.
We all recommend a password manager, and it's not Apple Keychain or
Chrome,
Edge browser or whatever, Chrome, for that very reason, that if somebody, God forbid, breaks into the account, then they get access to they get the passwords, they get the keys to the kingdom, literally.
Yeah.
And it's convenient, but for a couple bucks a month to have a separate siloed off password manager, it becomes a no-brainer.
So I think the key takeaway is just, well, one, turn on MFA, but two, just think about where your data is and whether it's a good idea to have it with one company, right? And then make sure you turn on stolen device protection. And if you're not...
On that same note, be careful of using Apple or Facebook or Gmail as the login source for any of these other apps that you got out there, because if you lose access to any of them, you're going to lose access to a lot more.
Absolutely.
I know it's easy.
I know. The trick there is, are you doing everything to protect the identity that you're using? Like, do you have all the security protections turned on for the identity you're trying to use? Because like single sign-on in its own right is one of the more secure ways to do things, but you do have to turn on all the security protections for that single source of your identity.
I get that, but there's other reasons that some people that are using Facebook for SSO. There's other reasons where they're going to lose access to that Facebook account. If they start doing stuff on Facebook Facebook doesn't like, they can just shut the account off too.
I'll give you that. I don't know if I'd use Facebook for SSO unless it's something unimportant in your life, like a game or something crazy.
I'd strongly discourage that.
Look at your risk profile as a person and just realize, hey, if you're logging into something serious and Facebook is the login source, you may want to rethink that. If it's something that's simple and entertainment, okay, whatever. But yeah, make your own decisions there.
What we mean by that is like when you get that opportunity. I'm just going to explain to those people who, when they say log in with Facebook, when you set up an account, sometimes you have an option for using your Microsoft account, your Gmail account, or your Facebook account.
Or Apple.
And there's reasons why you may want to not have that being done with Facebook. It's probably the one we get more calls on of anything being hacked. It's one of the ones that gets hacked the most.
Oh, Facebook or
Facebook? I would think it's up there.
It's an easy target too. People reuse passwords, a lot of stuff there. I want to touch on Change Healthcare real quick. I want to talk about a little bit of update before we jet out of here. Speaking of public companies, let's just back to that mode. So I want to set the scene. I don't think I had all the data in front of me, so I have a lot more data at this time. They handle 15 billion healthcare transactions a year with a B.
Wow.
Billion. They touch 1 out of every 3 patient records. They allegedly do 50% of medical billing in the entire United States. Right now, this outage they've had from the ransomware attack back in February is costing medical providers $100 million a day.
How much again?
$100 million a day. A day. There are people that aren't getting paid, and some of the things that United Healthcare, who owns them, set up were kind of insane. Like, hey, you can get $1,000 a week from us. What? Like some of these places are losing tens of thousands of dollars a day and not getting paid for medical stuff that they've provided. Like, so you look at this and so this is like the ultimate in supply chain attack for our healthcare system. One, you look at it from the fact of, why is one company have that much influence? Remember, 15 billion transactions a year is what they cover. That's insane. The Wall Street Journal has actually posted an article about how one of their rivals is onboarding hundreds of thousands of customers right now during this attack. So Change Healthcare is going to lose a lot of customers. And Availity is the name of the company. They actually created a free service to help healthcare providers submit claims just to try to get paid. First of all, great PR, great move, fantastic move by that company. that's a great way to address this. Also, please do better than Change Healthcare apparently with their cybersecurity. But if you look at this whole cyber response, they've had Mandiant and Palo Alto in there doing their incident response. So these are two of the biggest companies in the world. Mandiant helps like governments and things like that. They're owned by Google now. Palo Alto is one of the bigger cybersecurity companies in the world. They do similar things with incident response. This is still not up. So February 21st, they had the issue. They made temporary funding available on March 1st, which is kind of a joke. Their pharmacy e-prescribing was fully functional on March 7th. So between February 21st and March 7th, pharmacy e-prescribing was not working. So that's allegedly up and running. Provider electronic payments is not up yet.
Oops.
Next week. Now, allegedly, they think it's going to be up this week. So this week being, we're getting towards the end of the week, so this is a problem. Next week, they're allegedly going to have, they're going to reconnect and the testing of their claim system. So you might be able to get payments, but you can't make claims yet. So it's going to be almost 30 days. And that's if they even meet that marker. It'll probably be 30 days from the time they attack to when claims can actually be back up and running. And remember, AlphaV out of all this just did an exit scam and left. Yeah. So the people still claim that they have the records. And it gets worse beyond that. People that were hit with AlphaV that did this attack, Black Hat, they're now double extorting people. So Change Healthcare allegedly paid $22 million, or United Healthcare paid $22 million, didn't get the data back. The ransomware operator, or as a service operator, just quit after getting the payment. The data's still out there, and now the fun part begins, because now their class action lawsuit's starting. Not only against Change, but against United Healthcare in general. Mm-hmm. The fallout from this, the number of records, is going to be enormous. Insane. We're talking it almost, maybe not quite Equifax level, but it's gonna get up there. Considering how many transactions and the fact that you have the medical billing, it's gonna be nuts. So I had a sales call this week with a potential customer, and they're in a certain industry that only has a handful of people, a handful of companies they can work with, just like this. And I asked them the question. I explained this to them, and I asked them the question: do you have a plan? Or have you actually had the conversation with this vendor of yours? What happens if they get a cyber attack? How long will they be down? What's their plan to get back up? And what other options do you have if something like this happens? And they just looked at me and they're just like, we've never thought about that. Well, guess what, guys? It's time to start thinking about that right now.
Yeah.
The three of us two of us at least have experienced this in our industry. In 2022, there's a ransomware attack, or it was 2021, whatever. There's a ransomware attack, or actually, it was a supply chain attack on one of our vendors. It led to ransomware in a lot of places, and their whole plan was shut things down. So we lost access to a tool that we used to communicate with our customers. So we had to scramble. And since then, we've made plans to have other things in place that if that goes down, we have something else that we can use. So I want to leave you with this. Just think about it. If you have a vendor that is so critical to you doing business, to you getting paid for your business to be here, start thinking about if you should have one, or maybe you should have somebody in your back pocket, or if you can split that up between two providers.
Yep. Good point.
And that's all I have for this week. I thank you for being here and listening to this rant a little bit. We talked a lot. We talked about Apple, we talked SBC, but we talked about the importance of just understanding how you run your business and make sure you have a plan.
Sounds good. Until next week, guys. Maybe we'll have Matt back with us.
Maybe
I'm just going to go drive over there and it's going to take me 4 hours to get there, but I'll go pick him up.
Matt hides in the black space of the screen right now. He's always been here. He's just been in the background.
Okay, guys.
We're living in the Matrix, guys.